Welcome to EPS-HDT. In this video, we provide an overview of each of the 14 EPS-HDT reports. Downloading and installing EPS-HDT is easy. Just go to headwaterseconomics.org, click on the socioeconomic profiles link, and follow the instructions on this page. Once you've installed EPS-HDT, open Excel, click on the Add-ins tab, click the EPS-HDT drop-down menu, and click Select Geographies. With EPS-HDT, you can produce 14 different reports. This video explains the contents of these reports. The reports are divided into two broad categories. Let's first look at the general report, which is called socioeconomic measures. An important thing to remember about socioeconomic measures is that if you select a number of geographies, they're aggregated and treated as one region. The other reports are called detailed reports. For these reports, if you select a number of geographies, a group of counties, for example, these reports will compare those counties side by side. You can select any number of reports, even all 14 at once, and you can run them for any geography you choose. For example, we ran all 14 reports, and here they are, each opened as a separate Excel workbook. Examining the first report, this one is called socioeconomic measures. This is a report on long-term trends in population, employment, personal income, income earned by industry, unemployment, and wages. And each report is organized in a similar fashion in that each has a cover page, each has an About EPS-HDT worksheet, and there's a table of contents. Each report is organized around a number of questions. The contents of each report, the text, tables, and charts, can help answer each of these questions. For example, in socioeconomic measures, the first question is, how have population, employment, and personal income changed? Let's click on this question and notice that it's hot linked, which means it takes us directly to the right page. So by clicking on the question in the table of contents, we ended up on page 1. And notice that the question is repeated at the top of the page. The question was, how have population, employment, and personal income changed? And the table, the charts, the bullet points, and the color-coded interpretive text are all designed to answer that specific question. Now let's go back to the table of contents and select the next question. We clicked on the question, how have the components of population changed? Notice that we're now on page 2 of the report. The question is repeated across the top of the page, and the information in the table, the chart, the bullet points, and the interpretive text is designed to answer this question. Now that we've seen a bit of socioeconomic measures, let's look at one of the detailed reports. Since we've already produced the reports, all we have to do is open the right Excel workbook called Summary. Summary is a report that compares the selected geographies side by side in terms of demographics, economic sectors, land use, and other topics covered in other detailed reports. Summary is a useful overview of the key differences between geographies. The first thing we'll do is click on the Table of Contents tab. Summary is somewhat unique in that it covers all the topics that are covered in more detailed reports that we'll discuss subsequently. For example, let's click on the first question, how are the geographies similar or different? This gets us to the first page of the report. The first row in this table shows the geographies we selected. In this example, we selected 3 counties, and we can see them listed side by side at the top of the table. Notice also that the 3 counties are reported as an aggregate region, and the U.S. is also shown for comparison. On the left side of the table are the key statistics that are being used to compare these counties against each other. Notice, for example, how these counties differ in terms of their employment in timber. Note that some of the figures are shown in italics, and this means that the data were estimated. This is explained further under Methods. And Methods papers explaining the Headwaters Economics estimation techniques are provided on our website, and the web address can be found in the Additional Resources section on the bottom right side of the worksheet. You can see the same information that is presented in this table in other forms, such as side-by-side bar charts, by clicking on each of the tabs in the report. Now let's go over the next report. This one's called Demographics. Demographics uses census data to describe the geography selected in terms of population, age distribution, race, ethnicity, poverty, income distribution, housing affordability, language, and education. A quick view shows how the information is presented. For example, page 1 shows population. Page 3 shows age distribution. Page 9 shows income distribution, and so forth. Now that you have the hang of it, let's go quickly over the content of the remaining reports. The agriculture report shows trends in farm and ranch employment and personal income, wages, corporate income including revenues and expenses, farmland by type, farms by type, and land occupied by farms and ranches. For example, the green line chart on page 3 shows net farm income over time. Now let's look at the mining report. This report covers minerals mining, coal mining, and oil and gas development. The mining report describes which industries comprise mining, including energy development, shows how mining has changed over time, the role of the self-employed, which can be important in this sector, mining wages, and how regional trends in mining employment compare to the U.S. For example, page 2 shows how the counties differ from each other in terms of mining employment, and shows long-term trends in mining employment. Now let's briefly look at the other reports. Services describes the various components of the service sectors and how employment in these has changed over time, and compares wages between service sectors. Travel and tourism describes the number of jobs and industries that include travel and tourism, and displays key statistics that are typical of tourism-related economies, for example, seasonal employment. Wages in travel and tourism-related industries are compared to the rest of the economy. Travel and tourism is a report that requires a bit of extra interpretation. Note, for example, on page 1, the definition of travel and tourism is provided, and more explanation is provided in the methods section. Other sector reports similar to agriculture, mining, services, and travel and tourism include government, non-labor, and timber. The non-labor income report describes trends in investment income, retirement benefits, and other sources of non-labor income. And an interesting report for many land use planners is the land use report. Land use describes for each of the selected geographies the land ownership on Worksheet 1, such as Forest Service and BLM, different types of Forest Service land, such as national wilderness and national monument and national recreation areas, different types of federal land that are managed for various purposes, land cover, and on worksheets 5 and 6, trends in residential development, including the change in residential acres per person and urban versus exurban development. The Public Land Amenities Report shows a number of indicators that may point to the role public lands can play in providing recreational and scenic amenities that serve to attract and retain people and businesses to nearby communities. The information in this report includes land ownership figures, population change, in-migration, residential development, growth of footloose service sectors, non-labor income, and travel and tourism related industries. There's also a report on the wildland-urban interface, and this report shows whether homes have been developed on or near fire-prone forested public lands. Finally, there's a report called Federal Land Payments, and this report shows the payments that county governments receive from federal sources, including payment in lieu of taxes, the 25% fund, and the Secure Rural Schools and Community Self-Determination Act. Payments are described over time, how they're distributed, and their relative importance for county and school budgets. Remember, anytime you'd like to run a report, perhaps for a different geography or topic, go to the Add-ins tab, then the EPS-HDT drop-down menu, and click Select Geographies. Thank you, and visit the EPS-HDT support pages at headwaterseconomics.org for other resources including documentation of methods, contact information, and videos that describe how to install the EPS-HDT add-in and how to use the add-in to create reports, print, and export.